start analyzing each category of the checklist so that we can look through example and find ways to take gender balance into account while designing a new MOOC. The first issue we might want to consider is quantitative. How many male faculty members take part in the MOOC? How many women? Are we balancing the representativeness of both? This might seem to be a good start, but it's not enough. What we would like to focus our attention on since the very beginning is the presence of women experts in the field of STEM MOOCs, so that we can clearly show that scientific hard skills are obviously not only known and taught by male scientists. The visibility and recognition of what women scientists are already doing in their everyday work is still an area of improvement. That's why we are focusing on it with these specific lines of the checklist. When designing a new MOOC, let's clearly show what women scientists are already doing. Let's present their work as we would present male scientists' work. This means that we are not trying to make more space for women, but we are interested in recognizing what they are already engaged in and their results. There are many online resources that provide a way to research and get in contact with female experts in a variety of fields. They were created because the underrepresentation of women, especially in the STEM field, is still a matter of fact. There, you can find an expert to involve in your MOOC as a lecturer, role model or testimonial, especially if your MOOC's teaching staff is composed mainly of men. We provide a list of these repositories in the bibliography. Take a moment to have a look at them. In the previous lessons, we said that when a new MOOC project is on the table, many roles are involved at the same time. This means that we have to consider the perspective and the constraints brought into the project by all variables involved. Let's start with a practical example of a typical situation. We have one expert from the faculty who is going to record the videos for the MOOC. This expert is male or female. In both cases, the production team will need to consider balancing the presence of males and females in the whole MOOC, working on examples, exercises, images, and all kinds of content. In case more experts are designing a MOOC together, even if this is more complicated from a production perspective, it can be very helpful from a gender balance perspective, or at least it can give us a chance to balance the voices of men and women behind the camera. Representativeness of women in scientific roles is important. Role models are in fact fundamental in supporting young girls foreseeing themselves in the same position in their future, and thus making choices for their educational career that are consistent with this approach to professional development. If a young girl sees only men represented in scientific positions, it is proven to be more difficult for her to try putting herself in their shoes and act consistently. There is a famous experiment called Draw a Scientist test that has been designed by David Wade Chambers. He asked almost 5,000 school children to make a drawing of what a scientist looks like. The results of this first study, conducted between 1966 and 1977, revealed a very strong gender bias. Virtually every child asked, more than 99%, drew a male scientist. Only 28 children drew a woman scientist. And by the way, all 28 of them were girls. Impressive? Oh yes, but it makes sense because the original study was conducted in the 70s, and back then females in science were absolutely underrepresented. The test has been iterated several times during the following decades. It is good to notice that a recent meta-analysis shows that the number of children depicting a woman scientist has increased to 28% on average, at least in the United States, where the study has been conducted. But there is still a long way to go, and this is the reason why we want to stress the importance of including gender-balanced faculty in the MOOC. Another question we might want to ask ourselves is, do you actively seek ways to be inclusive to both women and men in your approach to the design of these MOOCs? The purpose of this question is to make sure that we are applying an inclusive approach from the very beginning of the process. It means that we, as MOOC designers, content experts or visual designers, will keep in our mind that our audience is composed of different genders, and thus we should try to use a tone of voice and a narrative that is inclusive for all people. The MOOC development team can pay choral attention to this aspect and keep it under control, applying strategies that can make anyone feel comfortably involved. Our effort as MOOC designers is to build alternative narrative where we do not assume that MOOCs are neutral per se, and all people are equally involved simply because we are speaking about numbers. The simple fact that we are showing neutral educational content doesn't prevent the final output to be gender related. Theorems and numbers are neutral, but the person speaking is not, because of his/her sociocultural background and personal story of life. So, when you are speaking about a specific topic and teaching a subject, don't try to be neutral at all costs, because effective teaching needs to be engaging too. Talking about something is different than talking to someone, meaning that you should keep in mind your target audience composed by males and females. And now take a moment to reflect. You are at the very beginning of this path of designing a new ideal MOOC. Think about your style as a teacher and as a learner. This is a quotation by Dr. Crystal Jones. It is one thing to say all are welcome, it is another to say I had you in mind. Our effort will be to design a MOOC that has been created to welcome everyone and with females in mind, while we deal with all the constraints of a sometimes complicated production process. In the next lesson, we will dive into the checklist and find out how to build a MOOC as gender balanced as possible.